For this community conversation, I'm going to talk about Google Forms. You're going to start off at your Gmail account and head to the Google Apps. Once you click on the apps, you'll scroll down until you see the forms in the purple icon. Once you click on that, you can select blank templates, or they have pre-made templates for you to use as well. If you've already made forms, you can see your forms right here. So tonight I'm going to start with a blank form. When you come to the blank form, you have style options, you have a preview, the settings, which we'll get to later, the send button, which sends it out to your students. Along the side, you have options to add a question, add a title, add images, add video, or add a new section to your document. So I'm going to start out with the title. Below it, you can add a description. And then you can begin adding your questions. Once you've added your question, you can come over to the side and select which form you would like your students to answer it in. Short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, checks boxes, drop down, linear scale, multiple choice grid, date or time. For my first question, I'm going to select multiple choice. You'll come down and you'll see you can add your first option. And you can come down here and you can add more options. I'm just going to add 2 for now, but you could add more. When I come up to this first option, if you notice there's an icon over here with 2 little mountains. If you click on that, you can actually add an image to that answer. So I'm going to add the image that we use when we're talking about the vocabulary term maps. So I add that right below the word maps, and I'm going to do the same thing for symbols. I had the images already saved on my desktop, so I'm just dragging them on. However, you could upload them from a folder on Google Forms. Now, I'm done adding this question, so I'm going to come up to the side and click Add Question. I'm going to add a second question. This time, rather than multiple choice, I'm going to add a linear scale question. When I select linear scale, you can see that you can choose if you want to start at 1 or 0, and you can select it all the way up to 10. For today, I'm just going to do 7. You can also add a label, but you don't have to. So I'll just add never and daily, just so you can see what that would look like. Now I'm going to require my students to answer all my questions so that they can't skip over a question. So I'm going to say it's required, and I forgot to do that on the first one, but I can come back and easily slide it over and say that the question is required for them to answer. Now that I've finished those 2 questions, I'm going to add a third question, and this final question is going to be an open-ended question. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select paragraph. Just like I added an image to the answers on my first question, you can actually add an image to your question. So I'm going to add an image to my question. Again, this is an image that students would see when we're talking about MapKey. You can decide how large or how small you want it. So if I make it small like that, I can do that. You can also decide where you want it on the page. So I'm going to require this one to be answered as well before students can submit their work. Now, once I've finished adding my questions and I feel like it's ready to go, I'm going to come up to the settings and I'm going to select not the presentation, but the quizzes, because I want it to be considered a quiz. And I'm going to slide it over. You can decide when the grade is released, and you can decide if the respondent can see the missed questions, correct answers, and the point values. So I'm going to hit save for now. When you come back to the editing screen, if you click on the first question, you're going to see that it has answer key down here. You want to click on the answer key, and it wants you to choose the correct answer. So I would choose symbols here. You can assign a point value. You can assign 1, 2, 3, however many points you wish that question to be worth. Now this question is personal, so I would not assign an answer to it, and that's fine. You don't have to assign an answer to all of the questions you have. Again, this one's open-ended, so maybe I would want to say, here's an answer that yours could sound similar to, or here's a general answer, but I wouldn't want to have it mark it right or wrong based on that since it is open-ended. I can come up here and I can change the color, so I'm going to change it blue just so you can see how the color changes. And I'm going to preview it so I can see how my students are going to see the quiz. And I'm just going to answer it so you can see the students would select and then they hit submit. They can view their scores or they could submit another response. Now when I come back to the forms, I can see responses and I can look at what they said. You can view it as a summary, so all of the students who have answered it, or you can view individual reports. Now I'm going to head back and I want to show you one other thing that you can do. From my first demonstration, you could clearly see how it can be used as quiz, questionnaire, rating scales, invites, etc. But I was really confused as how it could be used as a rubric. So I actually went back in to see if I could figure it out. And I'm going to open a document that I've already started just so I can save some time in terms of typing the options. So I came in here and I've added a rubric for my Introduction to Writers Workshop. And I selected the multiple choice grid. And on my grid, I decided I would write the different areas that I wanted to focus on and then how I would rate them. So never, sometimes, and most of the time. I also slid, this was over here to begin with, and I slid it over that would require one response per row, so my students would have to respond. If I click on my palette this time and select the mountain, I can choose another different theme versus just the boring color. So I chose the crayons, so I'm going to start with that, or color pencils rather, sorry. Now when I view, I can see how it forms into a more of a rubric sense versus just the question and answer like before. So I thought this would be a great way to have students rate themselves before conferencing with the teacher. And I felt like this is something that I could definitely use as a first grade teacher so that students are actively engaging and thinking about how they would grade themselves. So when you come back, you would get the same thing as students are responding. You would get the same thing. You would be able to see the summary and the individual answers to those questions. As you can see, I had more than one here, so I would scroll over to see student number 2's response. Now you're probably wondering how the students get these quizzes or rubrics in the first place. Well, once you've decided that it is finalized and good to send, I always like to preview it before I send it, but I've previewed it, I said it's good to go. Now I come up and I can click the send button. And at the send button, you'll see you can send it out as an email, you can grab it as a link, or you can even get it as an embed code. So if you have your own website, you could embed it in the website and students can fill it out through your website or blog if they have access to that. I know my students have access to a Gmail account, so I could easily send it to their Gmail account as well for them to answer. Thank you so much for listening. There's so much you could do on Google Forms. As I said in my blog, you really have limitless amounts of opportunities for this, but it is very easy to use. You can make something very basic, or you can add as much detail as you wish. So I feel like I can easily implement this in my classroom just using it for rubrics or quizzes. Thank you so much.